You're listening to Heather Lewis and Mark Hafen from Animal Arts Architects, and we're going to give you everything you possibly want to know about construction and design timeline for your project, all in hopefully less than 5 minutes. So I think the fundamental idea here is that maybe like this talk, it's going to take longer than you think.
Way longer.
And so I think it's a process where you're going to have to develop a vision, gather information, and you're testing your assumptions, all part of a ruminating process. And this is going to sort of set the groundwork for a little bit more advanced work down the pike. But if you don't do this part, then the rest of the part just won't hold together at all.
In fact, I think that this part of the project where you talk about it, figure out how it's going to work, develop your vision, keep an idea book, that's probably the most important part of the project. That's the part that's going to make it work for you. And that's going to help you define how long it's going to take, all of that pre-work.
Yeah, you have to set up the groundwork here. So once you've done that, then you can move into some more analytical pieces. We're talking about market analysis, site capacity, trying to decide if your existing building really is going to work. If you've been in there for 30 years, does it make sense to save this thing, or should you just put it out to pasture? These are things you need to step through.
And it shouldn't actually be a very difficult process to get some of this initial analysis done. Actually, looking at a site plan, for example, could be a very quick study. It could be just a few hours of figuring out whether or not your building fits on the site and how the parking works around it. So there's no need to overcomplicate the process. It's just a matter of knowing that you have to do these things before you get started.
Yep, and you have to kind of go through each one of those little pieces. You can't skip to the end. You got to actually do the spot here. So we're also going to need to do stuff about looking at what kind of space is required, and then of course the budget. You've got to figure out what kind of budget and what's your dollar value going to be. So. The big one you have to really watch for here, and it's causing us dilemmas on lots of projects, is the planning and zoning. And I call it the big black hole because it's just amazing what it can do to your project. So if you're not use by right, and that's a buzzword, but we can go to that some other day. If you're not use by right to build on your piece of property, then you need to plan a good chunk of time for this.
And the best way to get your head wrapped around that chunk of time is to go and sit down with your planning department so you really understand what it's going to take. You as the owner have a great tool in your planning department. They're going to care about what you think because you're the taxpayer. So if you can sit down with them and find out how long it's going to take and what the pieces are, then you can avoid surprises later. Your architect's going to be a really valuable resource to you in the project. If you can get somebody competent on board early, then he or she can help you step through the process and really save you time.
Other people you're going to need to plug into the process: accountants, lawyers, your planners, your engineers. We'll discount the engineer for the time being, but the planner, and then of course your banker. So these are all things that all people you can draw from. So.
And the more of these people you can get on board early, the better off you're going to be, because if you have to stop the project to find a lawyer, for example, that you trust, then that'll just be time taken. Is
there such a lawyer you can trust? I don't know.
But if you have to stop the project to find any one of these team members, that's going to take out of the whole process.
Another piece of this thing is actually trying to lock into some financing. So you have to do this homework, and the bank won't commit right off the bat to loaning you the money, but they'll start giving you a preliminary commitment based on some early drawings. So you need to run out how many square feet of building area you're going to have and plug in a cost per square foot on this. Let's talk quickly about what the process is in terms of design work, and we do schematic design, schematic drawings as the first stage, and this is where you actually lay out your floor plan. It's established the overall organization of the building. This is really the foundation upon which everything else is built. So you need to get your floor plan correct. So you can't be screwing around with extra square footage floating around that you're paying for that you're not using. So this is a functional machine that you're trying to design, and that's what we're trying to lay out for you.
The schematic drawings also may take into account like the exterior appearance of the building is the best way to describe it simply. But this process is just to get the basic scope and scale of the project, how it lays out and what it looks like. And it's no more complicated than that, but it has to be done.
And then when you have the schematics, this is a good time to talk to your contractor. This is a time that he can actually sit down and give you a ballpark price. So it's a way to cross-check that you're on the right track, going the right direction.
The great thing about getting your contractor on board early is that if he has advice to you or to the architecture team design team about how to save cost or do something different, then you haven't gotten too far down the pike and you haven't gotten too far into the process to get that feedback and make use of it.
With the schematics done and a price, now you can proceed into the actual drawings. And there's different names, as we call it, working drawings or the blueprints or the construction drawings or even contract documents. But the fundamental concept here is that we draw everything you're going to get in your building, and this is a contract with your contractor. So if you don't draw it, you don't get it. So there's an onus on us to get it right here. But that's the real fundamental piece of this thing. It's actually a contract. It's just not just a drawing.
Yeah, and the specifications are part of that. That's probably the most boring book you'll ever read, but maybe one of the most important. It has all of the quality pieces to it. The drawings are quantity and the specifications are quality.
The specs also make good bedtime reading, so if you can't do anything else, you can sit down and read them that way. Once your drawings are done, we're going back to this bugaboo called permitting, and you have both planning and building department permitting that needs to be done. And this can take anywhere from an afternoon to the rest of your life, but hopefully it shouldn't be that long.
If you're in a rural area or a small town, it may be really easy to get a building permit. It might only take a few weeks, especially if your contractor knows somebody in the building department and can help you expedite the process.
On the other hand, if you're not in a rural area, say you're in a big city, it can be really difficult. And example, we're just working with a project out in LA, and we've been back and forth in the plane, 4 times out of the last 5 weeks. And I'm not sure we're still making any progress.
It's been in the building department for 4 months now, I think.
This should be some type of distinction there.
Yeah, we actually found out that it's the largest building department in the entire world, which is quite a distinction, I think. So, that kind of thing can really put a hitch in your project. I think it's a good idea to talk to the building department ahead of time when you're designing to make sure that you have an idea about how long it's going to take to get a building permit and whether or not you need to get a facilitator hired to help you through the process.
And also a travel agent. Somebody
That's
can
right.
book flights early and often.
Right.
The time to price the project, once you got the permitting going on, you can also sit down and actually have the contractor work up a final price. And hopefully it's not going to be a surprise because he's gone through and done this before for you on the schematic. So we're heading in the right direction here. The actual construction, it varies by the scale of the project. For a leasehold, we might be into 4 months to build. For a freestanding facility, it might be 8 or 10 months. But that's not the total time. So let's back up a second here and talk total time. The total time for like a leasehold, from the time you walk into your architects to the time you move in, is probably going to be 6 to 8 months. And in that process is a lot of in-between time for decision making and paper pushing and this type of thing. But fundamentally, that's going to be your answer there.
And it's best not to push either the in-between time or the construction time, because when the contractors get pushed, then mistakes happen and they kind of get all over each other and the trades are messing up. So you can't really push a construction project and you can't really push yourself on the in-between time where you're making decisions, because both of those time periods are very important to a project.
And for a freestanding facility, what we're dealing with here is probably more like 18 months. It's probably going to be 8 to 10 months for the construction, and the rest of the time is the process time. Developing the design, permitting, pricing, financing, ruminating, all total, best about 18 months. So that kind of gives you it all in one lump. Fundamentally, you can't rush it.
And it takes a lot longer than you think.
Yes, exactly. Like this talk. Thank you.